that many people that can say they made the global finals of the Players' Cup. That alone is an accomplishment which is very rare amongst the player base. So now we know the players, we know their decks, it's time to take a look at the game and get our first taste of this Pikachu and Zekrom against Arceus and Dialga and Palkia matchup. Who's going to win, Joe?
Oh, I mean, this is a really hard one to call, to be honest. It looks like Zach has won the coin flip, and he is choosing to go second. It's something you often see with Pikachu and Zekrom style archetypes because they so often want to use Electrify with Bolton V. That being said, given an Arceus Dialga Palkia the option to go first, that's already a big risk because its win rate is extremely high going first because it too loves getting early attachments on the board.
Oh, absolutely. It's just making it easier for them to get that Ultra Creation GX the first turn they're allowed to attack. It's a GX attack that says for the rest of the game you get to do an extra 30 damage on all of your attacks and take an extra prize with every KO you take. Clearly, the goal is to get that rolling as soon as possible. And going first, unless you get hit with something like a Crushing Hammer, you can just attach turn 1, attach turn 2, and as long as you get it in the active, there's your GX attack.
Yeah, and it looks like Marco's got a very solid start here. He's got that Metal Energy attachment onto his ADP. He's also got a Zacian V down on the board. Interesting to see him choosing to attach a Metal Energy. Possibly it's only the one he has access to, but let's be fair, both players have knowledge of the opponent's deck as well. So knowing that Zach is playing 4 copies of Crushing Hammer, it's always a good idea to plant your Metal Energy down first, because it means if there are Crushing Hammers, you can simply look towards Metal Saucer and Energy Switch combos the following turn, as he does end on an Intrepid Sword, and we move over to Zach here, who kicks things off with a Cherish Ball.
Absolutely. Now, he's got a lot of options there. Cherish Ball will get you any Pokemon GX. So, it looks like we're going for Raichu and Alolan Raichu there. Could get a Dedenne to draw more cards. Could get a Mewtwo and Mew, but one of them is already on the field. And we see what all the top players tend to do here. We're seeing a bit of a deck search. Zach is having a look through his deck. He's trying to discover what his 6 prizes are. Beginning of the game, 6 of the cards from your deck get put down as your prizes. This is the first opportunity to try and discover what those cards are, so you don't try and make a particular strategy only to find out there's a particular card that you don't even have access to. And does it like it's going to be that Raichu and Alolan Raichu? Or we're being a little bit slow rolled here? It's certainly a good card to go for.
Yeah, it's a tough call because when you already have the Mewtwo and Mew, you want to have the flexibility to be full blitzing quickly as well as potentially using the likes of Tandem Shock. We may be seeing him go for a Professor's Research out the gate here and just throwing away all these energy cards because, like we say, Bolton is the thing you want to be attaching to in the best case scenario. Currently no switch card for him, but he does still have the option to use Dedenne and plenty more draws for him here. He's also drawn into a couple Crushing Hammers early, which are so nice in those opening turns. Interesting that he's mulling over using the Radar before seeing the outcome of these Crushing Hammers. I imagine here you simply discard the Chaotic Swell, maybe the Lightning Energy. Those seem like the easiest cards to discard from his hand. And straight away we are seeing a Bolton V with the Quick Ball, knowing that he can Radar into the other cards as well. Potentially keeping the Speed Lightning as an option. Here we go. So he's just looking for a switch out right now. He can go for Dedenne if he really is forced to. There is always a bit of a worry about putting down the likes of Dedenne GX in this sort of matchup because it's so easy for Arceus Dialga Palkia to prey on those with gusting cards. So it's good to see he's been reserved. He's got a double Tails on Crushing Hammer early, which doesn't make things very easy, but he's got to continue with his turn here. He has to use Dedenne Change because if he's not using Electrify, already the Arceus Dialga Palkia is putting on too much pressure.
Really is. Zach has not had a lot of luck the first couple turns. Of course, he had a switching card in his opening hand, but he had to get rid of it. Does he hit one here? He doesn't. And now he's got a third Crushing Hammer. I mean, you've got to think there's a heads coming off of this one. You know,
You'd
two
like
tails
to
on.
think so.
That'd be nice. Double Tails on Crushing Hammer, having a switch card when you don't need it. Oh no, it's another Tails. That is a rough turn 1 for Zach there. Didn't get the switching card, had to drop a bunch of energy, including Speed Lightning energy, used 3 hammers and didn't get rid of any energy. That is not the turn Zach was looking for at all there.
Yeah, that's really rough. Missing the Electrify is huge. it means that the only response you can do to Marco most likely getting his own GX attack off here is just having to electrify anyway, and that's really rough, especially when you've already lost so many of your energy disruption cards. It's so easy for Arceus Dialga Palkia to sort of take over the board with energy attachments when you don't keep them in check on those opening turns. I'm sure Zach would have been happy to see that many hammers in the opening turns, but not when they're flipping tails.
No, it's not what you're looking for. And I mean, you look at Zach's hand here, there's no draw cards there. He can play another Dedenne and he can draw more cards that way. But like you said a moment ago, Arceus and Dialga and Palkia, once they use that GX attack, they're taking free prizes off a Dedenne. So if Zach has got 2 Dedenne on the bench, that's basically saying to Marco, well, you know what? Gust it twice, you can KO both of them and win the game. Having said that, it's not really that much of a better option than, say, taking a Boltund. So that does look to be Marco's route at this stage. Potentially just ignoring those big tag teams anyway and just going after those bench Pokemon, 2 little KOs, and that literally could just be enough to win the game.
Yeah, and that's most likely Marco's route, because it's really difficult for him to reach KOs on Mewtwo and Mew or Raichu and Raichu thanks to that resistance. Now, do bear in mind something going forward throughout the game, something to keep in the back of your minds, is that Marco is playing 1 copy of the new Leon supporter, which we haven't seen hit the discard pile just yet. So that's something that is sort of waiting in the wings at some point to make that Brave Blade reach up to 290 damage after a GX attack buff. So that's one way through the tag teams. But yeah, like you say, there's already some nice 2-prize Pokemon that Marco can turn into 3-prize knockouts once he's been able to accumulate a switch here for his Arceus Dialga Palkia, as he's continued to have another pretty solid turn here.
And that Leon does undo one of the biggest advantages Zach gets from playing the Mewtwo and Mew. Generally speaking, Zacian after a GX attack hits 260. Mewtwo and Mew's got 270. Things are good. But that Leon, well, just goes. Although that has now hit the discard pile, I believe I saw there.
Yeah, he's just had to discard it. He's also already got rid of his Eldegoss as well. So looks like a gusting approach will be Marco's main route here. But at the same time, Zach's had such a slow start. He might have the luxury of even trying to 2-hit KO through one of these tag teams as well.
He might, and it looks like Marco's also digging for a switch card here. I haven't seen one come down. That Oranguru shouldn't be in the active. ADP in the active using a GX attack? Sounds good. Ooh, ending the turn on an Intrepid Sword. It's going to draw him some cards, but that was not the turn Marco was looking for, so a little bit of help there for Zach.
That is a lifeline for Zach, absolutely right, because he must have been fearing the worst there, not being able to electrify, assuming that there was going to be an easy alter creation coming out against him. But even then, are you even able to Dedenne this hand? There's too many energies hitting the discard pile. There's already 4 basic lightnings in the discard pile. I believe he's prized 1 basic lightning, and there's 3 in his hand. Do you have...
And there's a speed lightning energy in the discard as well.
Yeah, this is really rough. You can always Tapu Koko some back. He doesn't have access to Crobat. That seems to be prized as well for him.
But the problem is, I mean, Tapu Koko can be used at any stage of the game. It doesn't necessarily help you too much now. I'm not liking this hand or this start really from Zach at all. I do like the reset stamp. Gets rid of Marco's hand advantage there he got from the Intrepid Sword. And still no switching card.
This is really harsh, because now you certainly can't Professor's Research. Then you will be running on empty. So it looks like he may have to simply Team Yell Grunt an energy away and end the turn. You can always Dance of the Ancients proactively as well, just to play around any gusting or anything like that.
I think it's got to be. You saw there that PTCGO, the Professor's Research, jumped up and wiggled a little bit like, hey, do you want to play me? And the answer is no. Right now I don't. There's too much energy. I mean, there's only so much in the deck. Seeing so much of it hit the discard pile, now we might... Yeah, there's 1 energy left in the deck at this stage. That is it.
Yeah, there's no way you Professor's Research here, right? Oh my goodness.
There is a way you Professor's Research, Joe, and that is it. That is Zach's energy for the game, and until we start seeing some come out of the prizes, that's essentially the energy that we've got. So, I mean, are we just trying to... Is that a KO on the Oranguru?
It's a KO with Volt Storm. You can't electrify for any value because you've drawn into your last basic energy card. So Zach is playing purely for tempo now. That is all he can do.
So he takes the first prize.
He does have 1 lightning in the prizes. There's a Crobat that he was looking for earlier. Man, it's a huge risk from Zach. I'm certain that the Team Yell Grunt was a really terrible play anyway, and passing again doesn't feel too good, but I'm not sure he's having enough energy to see himself through here.
No, I mean, Boltons, you want to be hitting up to the 200 damage range. You want to flood the field with energy. What you really want is to be using Boltund when you've got a bunch of free energy, Raichu and Alolan Raichu, Mewtwo and Mew, whatever on the bench. So when Boltund goes down, then you can bring up your other attackers. As it is, when Boltund goes down, there's nothing else on the field here. There's nothing else which can come in and pick up a little bit of the slack. So... you know, we even see the Dedenne getting a big charm there to give it a bunch of extra HP. And the GX attack comes down here. Altered Creation is on the board. And I think things are looking very rough for Zach here. I don't know if he has enough energy to do enough damage to win this game.
Yeah, this is looking pretty rough. I think he's going to go for a Tandem Shock play with his Mewtwo and Mew here, thanks to the help of Energy Switch. And you just try and keep the Arceus Dialga Palkia trapped for a turn if you can, but yeah, I mean, running on fumes, he doesn't even have any other energy switch left in his deck, I don't think. So yeah, I mean, he's just really, really hoping that he can keep Marco at bay here. Even the Crobat comes with risk because there's a fear of you decking out now. With only 10 cards remaining in your deck, drawing 5 of those cards, it's a real issue. You wouldn't think that the game would last 6 turns, so you probably can Crobat here, but keeping it available for potential hand disruption as well is a reasonable shout here, as we are seeing the paralysis come in.
And I do like this. This is a huge advantage of playing Mewtwo and Mew. Generally with Raichu and Alolan Raichu, you use Tandem Shock, you get the paralysis, you get the damage, and then there isn't really a great follow-up attack unless you use a GX. Whereas Mewtwo and Mew here, you can just go into, well, not much at the moment, but if, say, a Pikachu and Zekrom hit the board or something like that, we could see some other attacks coming in. So we could see a 2-hit KO here, and then Zach would be down to 2 prizes remaining, and that could be as simple as taking out a Crobat or a Dedenne, but the question is whether he has the attacker to do so. Now, we do see a switch here, which is absolutely huge to get out of the paralysis. Zacian goes into the active. There isn't going to be a KO on the Mewtwo and Mew. Leon is not available, but could we see some gusting here?
Yeah, absolutely. There is the option for 2 Boss's Orders being the easy way for Marco to close out the game. He also does play 1 copy of Great Catcher as well, so not out of the realms of possibility here to go for that. But at the same time, Marco must be looking at Zach's discard pile at this point and thinking, I could even attempt to 2-hit KO the Mewtwo here, but when you have the Boss's Orders in hand, why not?
Oh, absolutely. The 2-hit KO is one of those, well, if I don't have Boss's Orders, I don't feel terrible about it. It's not your plan, number one. Boltund gets brought into the active. That is very much in range of a Brave Blade, and we're going to see Marco take 3 prizes here. And now, I mean, Marco is potentially 1 attack away from winning the game. Zach is at least 2. And I think Zach is going to have a hard time coming back here. We are playing a best of 3, and we're not under huge time constraints, so there's no real reason to concede the game. It might be worth seeing how Marco plays, seeing if there's anything. Remember, of course, we do have open deck lists here, so you still know what your opponent's deck is. But sometimes giving yourself some time to think, seeing how your opponent plays, it can give you a little bit of an insight moving forward.
Marco pretty much doing everything he can, getting a large hand size once again. He's going to be ending on 7 cards. He's got an extra energy down on a Zacian just in case any random issues come across through Zach's turn. But really, Zach's going to be looking to try and work towards a reset stamp and probably gust up Arceus Dialga Palkia. No, you can't even go for that play. Maybe even paralyzing the active alongside a reset stamp that still is in his deck. And just really hoping that, Intrepid Swords are even on the table for Marco at this point. We do see a Crushing Hammer and a Reset Stamp. Those are the best things you can do, really. So the Boss's Orders comes with a risk that... Okay, I mean, it does put you on a 2-turn clock to win, I guess. The Boss's Orders is a reasonable choice here.
I mean, it works quite nicely. You can try and take out that Arceus and Dialga and Palkia, and then, like you say, there is potentially a 1-turn attack to win somewhere down the road. So, I don't mind this. I mean, there is a Dedenne now on the bench that doesn't have a big charm, which does have 160 HP. So that can be taken out with, say, a Tandem Shock would get the KO there. There would need to be some switching involved, of course. Ooh. We do see an Eldegoss drawn, although
he needed either Boss's Orders or Eldegoss to win next turn. So he got the right prizes, but I'm pretty sure here it's not difficult for Marco to reach towards a Great Catcher or his last Boss's Orders. Does he have either of those outs? Only 1 Boss's Orders left in the deck, I believe. It would be stunning if Marco can't piece together a victory here.
And Zach has got boss's orders, and he's got switch in hand, and there is that Dedenne on the bench with 160 HP. So I think Zach has actually got the hand to win next turn if Marco doesn't.
Yeah,
unless I'm missing something.
Yeah,
here.
he can full blitz GX as well for the 200. He doesn't need to do any switch shenanigans. Oh my goodness. Has the stamp got him there? This would be amazing.
This would be amazing.
Man, he's played this game with 5 energies the entire game.
This has been a weird game.
This was the issue with Marco taking the boss prize last turn. Rather than just saying there's so many energies in the discard pile, let me 2-hit KO Mewtwo and then you can't do anything. Ignoring a big threat like this just opened this door up for Zach. And Marco, he'd played his Eldegoss, he had played his he needs to try and find the tag ball GX, there it is. He'd played his 3 boss's orders. I think the Leon was gone as well, so he was just limited with his outs at that point, and a reset stamp just made a huge comeback. So one of those things where Zach, you'd think everything's gone against him there. I think he flipped tails on every crushing hammer, didn't he? Yeah. I think he drew way too many energies that you couldn't have your plan A available, but when there's a reset stamp, there's always a way, and that's really how Zach was able to get over the line. And potentially you can question Marco for going aggressive with the prizes and really pushing a 1-turn clock rather than just dealing with the board presence. Because I feel like that's probably a safer route. It means that you don't need to do anything with your hand. You just win over 2 turns without actually taking the physical 6 prizes. You're just saying, Zach has nothing left after the Mewtwo goes down. But fair play for Zach for, keeping his head in the game, not really being too concerned about the resources that he'd got rid of, and made sure that the ones that he still had remaining were enough to get him over the line. Really cool stuff to see.
A very, very strange game. I mean, I think the point you make about the boss's orders from Marco's side is absolutely a great point. I think Zach there really just... It almost seemed like a mindset of, look, I'm not going to have my usual game plan, and it's probably not going to work, but I've got Crushing Hammer, and I've got Reset Stamp, and I think I can have free energy on an attacker for most of the game. I'm not going to have many backup attackers, I'm not going to have too many options, but I can have free energy on an attacker, and if I can just have free energy on a Mewtwo, a Mew, or something like that, I can keep attacking. And if I can keep attacking, and I can get lucky with a Reset Stamp, it might work. It was an improbable win, but who really cares? That was a really, really good win.
I actually think it feels better when it's an improbable win that's gone your way, because you know that you've had to play well despite the odds being stacked against you there. He was, whiffing that early Electrify. He had to throw away so many of his energies that he literally used 5 the entire game. Like, that's it. And that's so rare for Pikachu and Zekrom that's normally throwing energies all over the place. So, yeah, really cool. And again, like you said, showing off the power of the Mewtwo and Mew tag team GX as an include, not only for the, colossal potential in the new format with Vivid Voltage being out there, just having an additional 30 hit points. Like, so often we've seen Pikachu and Zekrom trying to use Big Charms just to increase your hit points to that 217. Now Mewtwo just has it inbuilt, so it's a really cool include, and it's worked wonders there for Zach.
Yeah, it did seem to be pretty nice, that game. And of course, going into game 2, Zach has got to be feeling good. If you can win game 1 under those circumstances, Zach's going to be thinking there is absolutely no way that happens again. I have got to have a better start than that. So let's move over to game 2 and see if Zach can have a slightly better start and maybe a less nerve-wracking game going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And although, things went really quite awkwardly for Zach, let's not forget that Marco did also miss his usual standard of hitting that turn 2 GX attack, so he was also a turn behind in some regards. So, and he had some painful Professor's Researches trying to dig for some of those early outs, the switches and the air balloons that he also plays 2 copies of. So a few stumbling blocks for both players. Possibly this time around we're going to be seeing more usual gameplay from both of their decks.
No, absolutely. That would be the goal. And we see Zach has started with a Boltund with a Speed Energy in hand. That is good. And it looks like Marco has chosen to go first here, which, like we said, you would expect from an ADP deck, because you want that early game GX attack. And going first just gives you an easier route to get there.
Yep, and there's nothing wrong with getting an early air balloon on a Zacian. Is he able to piece together the usual outs of looking for Cherish Balls, looking for Arceus Dialga Palkia? He plays Energy Spinners, so looking to try and develop early Metal or Water energies, always a good deal. Quick Ball, never a bad option. There can be a ton of things here. If his hand is weak, he may be looking towards a Dedenne GX. If it's strong like this, you can go directly for the ADP, get that down and start working on getting attachments down, which he does straight away, which is already a solid hand.
Yeah, that's a bit of a giveaway there. When you don't go for something like a Dedenne, that says, I quite like my hand, an Intrepid Sword to draw 3 more cards, that is all I'm going to need here. The great news is, Zach is guaranteed a better start than last game. We've already got the Boltund, we've already got the energy, Electrify is already on the board before anything else happens. Could we even see a heads on Crushing Hammer? We can!
Wait, that card...
It's a whole new game.
Whoa, this card can get rid of energy cards. Didn't even know that was possible. So you can flip heads. That's remarkable.
I know. I was beginning to wonder why he even played it in his set.
But no, for real, that's a big deal, especially because Marco only has that Zarshin in the active right now, so you'd have to find a ton of switch outs as well as metal sources as well as energy switches to try and work towards his ADP. So those Crushing Hammers, they can be frustrating for the players themselves using them, as we saw with Zach last turn, but also super frustrating for the opponent to deal with as well. Looks like quite a few Boss's Orders are prized for Zach here. Is there one possibly in his hand? Yeah, it looks like there's one.
There is
Boss's
one in his
Orders
hand.
prized. So that's a little bit awkward, I think. Otherwise, he's pretty okay here. He possibly will bench the Boltund just to have something to guaranteed electrify onto, but when you have another supporter possibly on the other side of this Dede change, you can feel pretty comfortable that you'll find something better. And he does find a Raichu and Raichu, which is much better.
And the Crobat to draw cards, the Professor's Research to draw cards, Tapu Koko, which is not probably for now, but it's still nice to have down. That was good. I like this. And the Crushing Hammer means that Marco, instead of needing a water energy, now needs Metal Saucer, Energy Switch, water energy, which is a huge difference. Zach is having a really good turn 1 here. Now, is eyeing up.
Yeah, I think he was thinking double switch just to draw more from Crobat, but instead he's just going to take the 3 as they are, and he could still look towards Professor's Research. I kind of actually prefer just Professor researching away the Crobat, because now you're opening up easier Gust prizes. I know the Boltund's already in play, but still, and wow, putting the Pikachu and Zekrom down is also pretty interesting. You prefer it to be a Mewtwo and Mew here, just because of the amount of hit points that you have instead. Choosing not to play any supporter at all that turn, and just sitting on the Electrify and sitting on the hand, really.
Yeah, I mean, Boss's Orders now is in play for next turn. Professor's Research gets rid of that option. So I think that might be what Zach's thinking. Of course, we expect an... Oh, there is a Metal Saucer Energy Switch.
He makes it look so easy.
Oh, Zach's like, I finally get heads on Crushing Hammer. Now we need all these extra cards. And Marco's like, no, it's cool. I've got them. We're fine.
I had them the whole time, apparently. So that's pretty cool. Let's see where else he can go with this hand. Still looking towards water energy. He plays 3 copies as well as 2 copies of Energy Spinner. And looks like Marnie is going to be his supporter of choice here. Interesting decision because he didn't see Zach play any supporter of his own. So it's always a bit of a mind game when your opponent doesn't play a supporter. Does it make Marnie less of a good choice for you? But regardless, he does go ahead and pull the trigger on it. He does find a water energy for himself as well here. So both players are doing, the usual thing for their decks this time around.
And that Marnie worked out well for Marco. He got the water energy, and Zach, I mean, he's got a switch. He's got Speed Lightning energy, which will draw a couple of cards. It might not be a terrible hand, but if you don't draw much off the Speed Lightning energy, it's just kind of attach and attack at this stage.
So let's see. So Zach has a couple options. He can try and go early Full Blitz. He can try and use Bolt Storm as well, potentially with Boltund. Is there any way that he could work towards using a Tandem Shock this turn? That would be a decent play with just a 4-card hand for the opponent. Any Crushing Hammers drawn could be huge as well. And this time, unfortunately, again gets Tails for him. There's also the potential that Zach just continues to Electrify. It may feel a little bit slow here, though. You may just want to get some damage in on the Arceus Dialga Palkia first.
Yeah, and I like that play. The Tandem Shock was not coming in without an energy switch. There is no energy switch in hand. There is potential to draw cards using Cherish Ball for a Dedenne, which does look like the route Zach is going. And playing that Dedenne there, we're discarding the Mewtwo and Mew, so Zach is in on the Lightning Pokemon. Oh, he did actually hit the energy switch after all, so that would have been an option if he'd wanted to go that route. As it is, we see an Air Balloon down onto a Crobat. We're going to see a full Blitz here. The attacks are very much on the board. But it seems like Mewtwo and Mew is essentially out at this stage. The bench is full, the energy is going down, And Zach is going to be riding with the Lightning Pokemon this game.
It looks like Zach is continuing to thin as many cards as possible. He's going to take a Pikachu and Zekrom out, potentially before a Professor's Research to go deeper into the deck here, and just continuing to establish a large hand size to give himself the most amount of options here. More Crushing Hammer could be another big deal here. Another big coin flip coming in. Wow, that's big.
That's 2 out of 3.
And when your opponent has a 4-card hand size and is looking to piece together something like Attachment, E-Switch, and then also using Boss's Orders, it makes life very rough. So you're seeing the benefit of the Crushing Hammers. When they are hitting heads, it just forces so much out of Marco. And, I mean, realistically, he's not going to be able to take a knockout next turn unless he's using a ton of Metal Sources for Zacians. But even shutting off the Ultimate Ray in the first place gives you tremendous value. So some nice Crushing Hammers coming in this time around.
And that's the thing, it's not just the Crushing Hammer, it's the fact that we've not been seeing Metal Saucer, we've not been seeing energy being gained off of the Intrepid Sword. Sometimes a Crushing Hammer a couple turns in feels a bit pointless because there's already 4-5 energy on the board. Now there's 1 energy on the board, and Marco's got 2 free energy attackers. Now if you can attack with the ADP, that attack, very much like Pikachu and Zekrom, accelerates free energy from your deck. But we're going to need a double energy attachment here, which is an attachment, like you say, in a Metal Saucer energy switch. We've seen that combo be pulled off once already by Marco, but it's asking a lot just to get an attack off. And then without a Boss's Orders, like you say, we're not getting a KO, we're hitting into the Pikachu and Zekrom, which just gives Zach essentially a free hit on the ADP to go up by 3 prizes, and we've seen a bit of a reversal of fortunes here. Zach really does seem to have had a very strong start here, and Marco is struggling to get anything rolling.
Looks like Marco's chasing the dream, though. He's going to commit the Water Energy attachment to the ADP and Quick Ball. So going for probably Dedenne GX or possibly even Crobat here for a deep dive into the deck where he's looking for Metal Saucer, Energy Switch, Boss's Orders. They're still potentially all on the table. There's also, again, that one great catcher that he does also play here. So as long as he has the reach, and, you know, he hasn't used any of his smaller basics just yet, he could still have a phenomenal turn here. Zach's just trying to make him have that magical combination. Now that he's already committed the Water Energy, you know, if things don't pan out with Dede Change and the likes, he's going to be really, really far behind. So it's really putting the game in Marco's hands, like, on the spot here. This turn has to be big, otherwise he loses so much tempo and is going to be very, very far behind.
And do remember that Zach is already up by 1 game, so it's not just the game, it's the match at that stage, popping Marco down into the loser's bracket. He does get himself an Oranguru, so Primate Wisdom is going to let him see an extra card, which is quite nice. Swap a card in your hand for the top card of your deck. It's not great draw power, but it's an extra card he wasn't seeing before. And then we're probably... Oh, it's a Professor's Research. Oh, so Boss's Orders was in hand there. So that was quite nice. Turns out he didn't have Dedenne, he got the Oranguru. My apologies on that one. But we do see a new hand of 7 cards, which means that Marco has potentially got cards and tempo and attacks and things of that nature, but he's not going to have a KO.
Yeah, throwing away the option for Dede Change here is actually a surprising one for me, because especially, yeah, I mean, you draw so many cards here. I still think it's in your range to actually still get that Boss's Orders KO. I'm trying to think what he would try and protect with Primate Wisdom. It would only really be something like an Energy Switch combo card that you had before the Metal Saucer. But yeah, Marco's left just using Intrepid Sword to pass here. So huge sigh of relief. Zach can make some big plays here. He could go just simply bossing Orders up the ADP and take 2 energy off the board and just wiping off the option for Ultimate Ray. That seems amazing to me, to be honest. I think that's a really strong start.
Because it's not just taking 3 prizes, it's taking almost all the energy off the board. You're putting Marco down to 1 Zacian with 1 energy, which means that there's no attachment attack next turn. It's got to be Metal Saucer attachment attack. And of course, you cannot Metal Saucer onto the Pokemon when it's in the active, although the Air Balloon will help with that one. But it's just making it so much more difficult for Marco to get anything going. We see a reset stamp coming down from Zach, and everything just seems to be going really well here. We're going to see a KO with full Blitz, although I believe there's no energy left in the deck to grab out here. And then we've got attackers, we've got backup attackers, and we've got options there for Zach. The kind of options that weren't there in the previous game. So I think Zach is putting himself in a very, very strong position here. Yeah. And it really is over to Marco. It needs to be Metal Saucer energy.
The only thing that I don't like there is Zac attaching to the active. I think if you attach to the Raichu there, you instantly can respond on a Zacian V, even if Marco does find Metal Saucer attach here, and you could Lightning Ride with another attach the following turn quite easily and just respond on the Zacian. Now, this Pikachu and Zekrom's kind of vulnerable, and that 4th energy attachment doesn't change anything for him really here. It would be, very odd for Marco to not find one Metal Saucer this turn, having not used any Dedenne or Crobat the previous turn. So it's a surprise to me that Zac's gone for this risk rather than keeping that Lightning Ride GX for the full value to instant respond on a Zacian. I think you just wrap out the game immediately after doing that. Especially when he played the Reset Stamp proactively. I thought the only possible reason to keep the Pikachu and Zekrom active was if you hold the Reset Stamp and sort of bait Marco into it, where you allow your opponent to take those prize cards so then you can hit them with that Reset Stamp where it really hurts them once they've taken, a 4 prize KO. Marco here Cherish Balling out a ADP. Either it means he has Dedenne in his hand or it's just not been there the entire game. They just may be prized at this point. Possibly Zac had the read that Marco quick-balled for Oranguru last turn instead of one of those easy basics, one of the ones that can help you draw a bunch of cards. So maybe it's more down to a read of the hand here than, what you would usually expect as you navigate the game here. But you have to think that there's an option for Marco here. Just Professor's Research. And there was the Dedenne in his hand as well. It's really interesting that Marco is trying to just not give those easier prizes with the Dedenne at this point. But we are seeing an Energy Spinner here for some more cards. Gets Metal Energies out. No, he's just going to take no target here. Has he found any Metal Sources at all here? I think only one played so far. So I think, you have to feel like it's likely that he's going to get there. I'm going to see a Mawile GX coming down and then a Dedenne change. So he's having to go deeper in the end. Getting rid of a lot of boss's orders in the process as well now. 3 of those hitting the discard pile.
That is not what he's looking for. He's looking for Metal Saucer. He's looking to try and get an attack off here. Now, he does get the free energy, which is lovely. But is it going to be enough?
Tool Scrapper's nice as well, but Zac is currently holding on to Switch regardless. He's had to go really deep just to find one Metal Saucer here, and he has no real backup after this Zacian, so you have to think if Zac had attached that 4th energy to the Raichu and Raichu, he would just be cleaning up at this point, to be honest. You would just easily deal with that Zacian and, leave Marco in a really horrific spot. But with that 4th energy attached to the active going down, it puts Zac back in a strange spot again.
We got to ask where the KOs are coming from, and like you've laid out really nicely yourself, with an extra attachment on the Raichu and Alolan Raichu, you had the GX attack for 450, switch to the bench, 250, 450 would be crazy, and then you've got a KO. And then we're expecting next turn Marco to have 2 Metal Saucer and an energy to attack, which is, and it would be the last 2 Metal Saucer. That's asking a lot. Zac's got attackers, he's got energy, there's going to be an attack here. But Zac doesn't want an attack. Zac wants a KO. Marco is 1 KO of literally anything away from winning the game. And if you don't KO that Zacian, we could be like a switch and a boss's orders, as long as there's something which can retreat, away from... And there is an air balloon on a Zacian on the bench. So literally a switch and a boss's orders should give Marco the game next turn. And then we'd be in this weird situation where 2 games in a row I've gone, well, looks like one of the players has got this in hand. And then the other player has gone and won and made me look silly.
Well, Zac's drawn into some of the best cards he could have seen from the Marnie. He's found a Reset Stamp, and I think that's when you're using a Paralysis play here, you can try and take the knockout over 2 turns instead. So I think Reset Stamp has to be the play here, just hoping that Marco can't find Switch out, and you just go for a Paralysis play. That's the best thing you have available to you by the looks of things.
Oh, absolutely. That's got to be the play. You get them paralyzed, Reset Stamp them down to a 2-card hand. It's asking a lot for your opponent to come back. And it was Reset Stamp last turn, or last game, that really sewed it up for Zac. It was that Reset Stamp for your opponent to not get anything, but it looks like he's holding the Reset Stamp for now, hoping that it's going to do a little bit more if it's played the following turn.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not too happy with this, to be honest. I mean, the paralysis doesn't mean anything because Marco has to switch anyway. So unlike normal Raichu plays, the paralysis, sticking is one of the big things that you're looking for. So, in that respect, I can see why. But you have to think that if Marco doesn't KO you this turn or take a Gust knockout, you have to feel favored. You have to feel like you're going to win the game after that. I think you always Reset Stamp there. You know, because you're
That's definitely
hoping
a strong
to get
shout.
them. Yeah, you're hoping to make them just pass with Intrepid Sword. Do we see a switch here? That's all that we need from Marco now. Does he have access
Oh.
to Crobat? It's going to be a 6-card dig to find a switch out here by the looks of things.
Yeah, and Switch will seal up the game, switch to Zacian, retreat for free with the air balloon, and then you can just attack into the Crobat, take the KO, and that will be game. Hasn't played it yet. Oh, there we go. So there comes a switch. And Marco is going to even this up at 1 game each. So we've had 2 games in a row where it looked like one player was having a much better start and putting themselves in an unassailable position. But it turns out in both games the position was well and truly assailable, but because it was in both games. And that's one of the things, you know, I asked you right at the beginning of this match, Joe, who's your money on? Who do you think's going to win this? And you said, well, it's a tough one to call. And I think we've had 2 games here which have shown what a tough one it is to call, because both of those games for so long really looked like they were going the other way, but both of these decks are so strong, they've got ways to come back, and they've both got really good late game options.
Yeah, they certainly do. And as much as we applauded Zach for his Game 1 gameplay, I think he'd look back at this and sort of think, if I had just attached to that Raichu instead, I'd have been straight into the Ascendancy and straight into an easy 2-0 victory, because he had such a solid start. He was able to Gust knock out the Arceus Dialga Palkia. Stopping Ultimate Ray is like one of the biggest things you can do against the ADP archetype, because then you're making them continually draw cards, continually find their next source, or continually find their next energy. And when you're making them, you know, use draw supporters especially, it means they're not using boss's orders. The biggest fear when you're playing up against ADP decks is that they're just, you know, taking their pick of what they're taking knockouts on. So, you know, really close for Zach there. I think we saw a better demonstration of how the Pikachu and Zekrom side can play the deck much more easily when you actually are electrifying and getting towards these high energy attack costs. But yeah, just a potentially small lapse of concentration, and, you know, that's all it takes for ADP to get straight back into the game. So yeah, we're moving into game 3. Both sides have got to win, and, you know, it can still go either way here.
And I do think that is a really key point. It could go either way. No matter what the starts look like, no matter what players are doing, no matter what the hand looks like, you're always just 1 or 2 cards away, a reset stamp, a boss's orders, whatever it might be, from actually going ahead and seeing this game being completely flipped on its head. So let's go and take a look at game 3 then. We're 1-1. One of these players is going to move on in the winner's bracket. One of these players is going to be pushed down to the loser's bracket. And, well, 2 losses and you're out of this tournament.
Yeah, it's a pretty unforgiving one. Let's jump into the game and see who's going to come out on top and stay in the winners, and who is going to be dropping down into that loser's bracket.
So we saw Marco win. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Zach chooses to go first or second here. Because, of course, we did see, I believe he chose to go second in game 1 when he had the choice. And it looks like he's done so again, choosing to go second. There's no Bolton start. But we got a Pokemon, got supporter cards, we've got Quick Ball for Pokemon search, so could be a lot worse.
Yeah, that's a really workable hand, and you actually kind of like having Raichu as a starter as opposed to something like Pikachu and Zekrom, because it only has a 2 retreat cost, so you have additional air balloon outs to get into your Bolton, so pretty good stuff overall for Zach. But it is going to be Marco who kicks things off with his favourite lead in the deck, the Arceus Dialga Palkia himself. He also has an Energy Spinner to kick things off here. He's going to continue to look for Metal Energy. He's always respecting Zach's potential to Crushing Hammer energies away. He also has a Quick Ball, so again, a pretty routine start for Marco. He could look towards Zacian to get an Intrepid Sword down, and that seems to be exactly what we're going to be seeing here.
Yeah, and that's all you really want, turn 1. Turn 1 going first, you want to get an energy on your ADP, and you want to Intrepid Sword to give yourself options for next turn. You want to be starting to take prizes turn 3, turn 2 is your GX attack, so turn 1, you just want to be in position for that turn 2 GX attack, so it's a fairly small start, but it's everything you're looking for. And we've actually seen Zach, I believe from his mulligan draw, he got himself a switch. Then he drew a Bolton for the turn. So if he wants to use that Electrify turn 1, he's got all the pieces on the board already in hand to do so. Plus a Professor's Research to dig for another 7 cards. He's got Electromagnetic Radar to go ahead and search for some Pokemon. This is a really strong, I mean, it was a good opening hand to begin with. But hitting Bolton and Switch as your 2 extra cards there, it really means that Zach can use his Quick Ball and Electromagnetic Radar to search for whatever attackers he really wants to go for here, and really start setting up a strong position with Electrify, and putting a little bit of pressure on Marco to have to take those prizes and get rid of those attackers really early.
Yeah, this is an absolutely phenomenal hand. I think we're seeing the radar getting rid of both Pikachu and Zekrom. Now, this quick ball could either be for a Mewtwo or a Tapu Koko Prism. I actually kind of like the Mewtwo option here quite a lot. If you attach with Bolt End onto the Mewtwo, you then have the option of either Tandem Shock or Full Blitz, whichever you feel is stronger next turn. So I'm really happy to see the Mewtwo and Mew come down. And I think you just discard the second Pikachu and Zekrom, knowing that Mewtwo can copy it. He's also going to guarantee that energy attachment. Not going to play games here. Just guarantee that Electrify. He's drawn into 2 Crushing Hammers. This could be, again, pretty big deal here. Anytime you get a heads, you're really fist bumping. There we go.
Oh, nice.
That's nice. And, yeah, pretty happy to end on an Electrify play. And looking at his hand for next turn, you know, he's got the option of using Tandem Shock with Mewtwo whilst also playing Amani. And, you know, if that can keep Marco away from Ultimate Ray, again, that's just such a big deal. So his next turn is mapped out pretty well once again. Really nice stuff from Zach's side.
And another Crushing Hammer ready to go as well. And it does look like Zach's deck is starting to cooperate. We do, however, once again, straight after a Crushing Hammer. Oh, no mucking about here. We've seen a Metal Saucer and an Energy Switch and a Water Energy. So within about 2 seconds, Marco's already got the energy on board to use that GX attack. That was a nice hand Marco was holding, it turns out.
Yeah, Marco basically just never blinks at those Crushing Hammers. He's just always got the answers in his hand. It must be a nice feeling. As we do see, he's also got a Quick Ball here, so at the very least he'll be drawing cards with the likes of Dedenne or Crobat, you've got to think. Potentially, if he's already holding on to a decent supporter, he could again look towards a Rangaroo that he's tried to weave in a few times during the series. Both good options here, depending on what those 3 cards are in his hand. He could also be having a quick look through to see his outs here. Because, you know, you've only seen 1 Crushing Hammer so far from Zach, so you may want to try and, you know, build a hand that's more robust to deal with more potential Crushing Hammers and just accumulate more energy switches and metal sources as well as you go, because he's always ending on his GX attack here. It's just really trying to build a robust hand for next turn.
Absolutely, and we saw Marco didn't play anything like Dedenne turn 1, had a very solid opening hand, knew that he was essentially Crushing Hammer proof, as was proven, and clearly wants to be back in that situation here. We're going to see a GX attack. I don't really think there's much more we can see from Marco, maybe a Metal Saucer if he's got one, but nope, just see the GX attack here, it's on the board, and now it really is over to Zach to respond, but he's got energy. And he's got himself Crushing Hammer. That's a Tails on that one. But he's got Energy Switch. So straight off the bat, he's got Mewtwo and Mew with all of the options he's got there. Then you drop a Marnie to put your opponent down to a small hand. And Marco might have had a good turn. But Zach is doing about everything that can be expected of the deck here. He's got himself everything he needs. He could go for a bit of energy with Full Blitz. But I think you called it, Joe. It's going to be a Tandem Shock here. Paralysis plus a 2-hit KO. Quite nice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think they're both decent options. I do still think that Full Blitz is reasonable here. But when you still have the Dance of the Ancients to fall back on, the Paralysis just has such big upsides. So I feel like Tandem Shock just can give you a huge foothold in the game if you deny that Ultimate Ray.
And you could still see an Ultimate Ray. You know, we've got a Zacian with an Air Balloon on the bench, which is something you're always looking for. So then you can just switch to that free retreat and the paralysis is reset. But it's what Zach keeps trying to do in this game. He keeps forcing Marco to have more cards. He keeps putting Marco in a position where he can do what he wants to do. He just needs an extra 1, 2, 3 cards than he needed before in order to pull off the exact same play. Which is what you're looking for with these Pikachu and Zekrom decks. We do see Big Charm coming down here, which is nice. Not going to prevent a KO, unfortunately, but it's still quite nice.
Yeah, we're also seeing the Primate Wisdom from Marco. He's really happy to use that Oranguru. He's weaved it in most of the games we've seen so far. It's great for not only seeing extra cards, but also sometimes protecting cards before using Dedenne or Professor's Research is what's going to be the choice here. Throwing away a Boss's Orders and an Energy Switch, I believe. So, and again, he's really just looking for switch cards here, metal sources as well as you go. Again, trying to safeguard around. Oh, so we see an attachment to the Zacian. He may be forced to Intrepid Sword again. The Professor's Research may have given him no outs to Dede Change here whatsoever, unless we're seeing more Energy Switch plays on top here. But the Paralysis may have stuck. It has.
Oh.
Wow.
That's huge. That is absolutely huge. Taking an attack away from your opponent, really almost taking a turn away from them. Essentially increasing the amount of turns it's going to take for Marco to win by 1 when you're playing Reset Stamp and Crushing Hammer. We see another heads on Crushing Hammer, so we see an energy going off of that Zacian, who is, of course, the better of the attackers, and is the one that isn't just about to be KO'd. And this is really nice. We've got Air Balloon, we've got a mixture of supporters. I would imagine it's going to be a Marnie here, because Zach's got such a good board. He doesn't feel the need to play Professor's Research and build up a nice hand and a nice board. He's pretty much got everything he needs on the board right now. He's about to put Marco down to 1 single energy on the board while going up by 3 prizes, putting your opponent down to a 4-card hand while you do that. Yeah, he'll take that.
Yeah, this is incredible for Zach. He's in a really, really strong position. You know, you've already seen some metal sources be used by Marco. He's had to, you know, playing around Crushing Hammers early on, forced those metal sources into play. And now you're putting him again at a really low hand size, taking this 3-prize knockout, denying Ultimate Ray once again, and building up towards a Raichu to actually take a response KO on a Zacian. I feel Zach is definitely in the driver's seat here.
Absolutely. And we've got Mewtwo and Mew in the active. Remember the discussion we had? You need to have an extra 10 HP there. So if Marco wants a KO on that active Mewtwo and Mew, it's going to take an attachment, and it's going to take a Metal Saucer, and it's going to take that 1 Leon in his deck. It's possible, but it's going to be a lot to ask for to try and pull all of that off. And even when he does, Zach now does have the response KO. He's got everything in his hand he needs to get the response KO with that Raichu and Alolan Raichu, so it's going to be a very difficult route back for Marco. But then again, we did say that last game and did find a way back.
He certainly did. So we'll be seeing Marco with a Cherish Ball now. Looks like Dedenne GX is most likely his choice, unless he's already got one of those in his hand. And he's got to get digging. He's got to try and work towards manual attachments, as well as those 2 metal sources remaining in his deck. As you said, Leon is a great out for him here as well. So these are things he's going to have to look towards if he's going to try and mount a comeback here. Interesting, Zach, you know, he could have put himself on 1 turn clock to win had he had put the energies onto the Mewtwo and Mew to then go for the full value of the Tag Bolt GX. But there is that small risk of getting Leon. So he instead threw it all to the back with the Raichu and Raichu, which is definitely the safer route here.
Oh, yeah, and it goes back to open deck list. Zach knows that Marco is playing 1 copy of Leon, and you can look at your opponent's discard pile in this program, so he knows it's still in the deck. And although it's an unlikely turn of events, it would go from I'm in a really strong position to, oh wait, now I might lose this game. And it's, even though it's a very small risk, the downside of the risk coming off, it's too much.
And actually with his hand, he could actually still get that full value Tag Bolt, because he could do some shenanigans where he plays a switch, retreats out of Raichu, then uses Tapu Koko, then energy switches back on and attaches to the Mewtwo. So it's actually not out of his reach still to get that Tag Bolt play. So it's hugely important that Marco can at least launch an attack here. And if he could take a KO, it would be really important.
And indeed, and to be fair, that would end the game. There'd be a KO on the Oranguru and the Dedenne, and that would be the game. Boss's Orders is in hand, so Zach has got the hand to win next turn.
I don't think he has any energy in his discard pile just yet, so he'd have to draw an additional switch out, I believe, would be what he would need, because the only way he can remove energies is retreating his Raichu, and then he has to... So he has to switch into the Raichu to then retreat it, but then the Tapu Koko wouldn't be going onto the Mewtwo. So I think he's still whiffing 1 card for that play.
You're right, he does need 1 more switch out. Cheers for that, Joe. So it's close. It's pretty close. So Marco here, I mean, he's got the energy. He's going to be attacking with a Zacian. We haven't seen Leon come down. We haven't seen a Boss's Orders here. Swinging for 260 at this point in the game isn't enough. Attacking when you're down by 3 prizes and not taking a KO. It's not like there's a Galarian Zigzagoon in his deck that he could use to take a mid-turn KO next turn. I think whiffing a KO there, it's going to end up impacting this game. Marco needed to take some prizes there. As it is, Zach is definitely 2 attacks from winning the game. And Marco is as well. The difference is it's currently Zach's turn. And there's no way that Mewtwo and Mew is going to be in the active to be KO'd that easily. The Mewtwo and Mew is going to be retreated, and he's going to force a boss's orders just to take a KO. It's just going to be Bolt Storm, and Bolt Storm gets a very easy KO, to be honest, with the amount of energy on the field. Zac is now down to 1 prize remaining. He's got boss's orders in his hand. It's starting to look a bit bleak for Marco here.
Yeah, Zac's in complete control. I mean, even if the Bolton is knocked out, you've got the guaranteed response KO on everything that Marco can attack with, realistically. He can't ever fashion an Arceus Dialga Palkia at this point, and I don't even think Marco has enough sources left to even launch an attack this turn, so I'm pretty sure Marco just doesn't have any outs to defend against this. That's one of the issues with Arceus Dialga Palkia. You play very few comeback cards. You're really hoping that your plan A is the way that you win the game, and if it doesn't, you just start feeling really sad. Like, Marnie is your only defensive option here, but even then, Zac's basically got game on board on everything that's currently in play for Marco.
Yeah, it's not looking particularly easy to win this. I mean, Zac no longer has the boss's orders, but he has the Raichu and Alolan Raichu, so unfortunately it's going to be a lot for Marco to come back here. Plus, there is a Cherish Ball, so I think Zac must have access to at least one Dedenne in his deck at this stage. So he's going to be able to dig if he needs to. There's too many options. Zac has done that thing that good players tend to do, and there we go. Marco has conceded. No matter what he did, Zac had something on the board that could answer it, does what good players do, and basically builds up multiple options. So congratulations to Zac. That was a good game.
Yeah, that was really a nice showcase for the sort of new age of Pikachu and Zekrom, where you're weaving in that Mewtwo and Mew. You're making sure that you can early paralyze when you can, and, you know, props to his list as well. He's playing 4 copies of Crushing Hammer and 4 copies of Marnie as well. That's his main supporter, so you can really see that he's trying to just say, I'm playing the most consistent deck in the format. I'm getting energies all over my field every single turn. Can you guys do the same with a 4-card hand over and over again? Especially when I'm, trying to weave in Paralysis and all these other plays. So very awkward to play against the Pikachu and Zekrom decks of the modern era.
No, absolutely. And Marco, he played very, very well. He won one of the games there. It's a very well-played game, but unfortunately, when you've got low hand, and, we saw in Game 3 how good Crushing Hammer can be. It hadn't shown up at all in Game 1, and through the match as a whole, Crushing Hammer, it just wasn't pulling its weight. And then Game 3 happened, and we saw that the Paralysis, plus the Crushing Hammer, plus the Marnie, there were more than one turn where Marco just wasn't really doing what he wanted to do. Then he finally gets a big attack off, but oh look, it's Mewtwo and Mew. There's 270 hit points. You do play 1 copy of Leon, but playing a one-off supporter, you've got to have it in your hand at the perfect time. He didn't. So we don't get a KO, and under those circumstances, it's just too hard to come back against a deck like Pikachu and Zekrom.
Yeah, there was just a board full of energies, so at that point, Marco, he had very limited outs to win the game. It was really decided earlier on when the Paralysis stuck on his Arceus Dialga Palkia. Essentially, when there's Crushing Hammers that are flipping heads, the ADP deck can't get through with enough attacks. Like, you just simply can't get enough energies into play without the help of Ultimate Ray. And when that's shut off by Zac through the Paralysis, through the Crushing Hammers, you're forcing Marco to leak early metal sources just to, keep up with his normal plan A, just getting the Alter Creation off in the first place. And it just means that they just don't have enough fuel in the latter stages.
Unfortunately not. And Zac proving there that he can win with 5 energy, or he can win with many, many energy. 2 extremely different games won there, but being a best of 3, winning 2 games, that is all you need there. So that was a fun little series, really showcasing the 2 top decks here. But we have another game coming up, which I believe is going to be Sam Clayfield against Hugo Laperriere.
Yeah, 2 different decks being piloted by these players. Sam is the lone Eternatus VMAX player in the field, and Hugo is the lone Blacephalon player in the field. So they've matched up against each other. They've not matched up against ADP or Pikachu and Zekrom. They are going to be having to battle it out with Eternatus and Blacephalon, as you can see here.
It's not what you're looking for. I mean, you go into the Players' Cup and you're like, right, there are 2 decks we need to beat. I'm going to play something different. I think I can make it so I've got an edge over those 2 top decks. And you end up playing against a one-of deck. So let's take a look at the accomplishments that these players have gained before coming into this tournament here. See what their resume looks like. here. Sam Clayfield, last year, Regionals top 32. Regionals are generally pretty big, pretty competitive tournaments, not the easiest places to get top 32, so not Sam's first taste of success here.
And for Hugo, not many in real life tournaments, but he's enjoying the online platform and he's doing well in the Players Cup 2 here. That's something great to see, that these events are open to anyone just playing at home. People can grind a ton of PTCGO, hone their skills, and hey, he's made his way to the global finals. So huge props to him for getting this far, and we'll see how far he can go.
And the next time we see a player profile on Hugo, there's going to be a lovely, hey look, made the global finals at a Pokemon Players Cup 2 on there. That is an accomplishment not many players can boast. And I do love that the Players Cup is giving people an opportunity on PTCGO. There's a bunch of players out there for whatever reason don't want to travel to tournaments or aren't able to travel to tournaments. I like having a tournament where we can just go, look, everyone go sit in a nice big comfy chair and let's just play some Pokemon online.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to do it from the comfort of your own home. It's great.
And while they're doing that, Joe, let's watch them play some Pokemon online. Let's pop to the game and see what we're going to see here. We've got the combo-heavy Blacephalon deck, and then we've got the fairly straightforward smashy Eternatus deck, though it does play Spiritomb, and I love that Spiritomb.
And the Spiritomb may actually be important for... Could be something that Sam tries to use to try and skew that prize trade, so we'll see how that goes going forward. I think the biggest things to bear in mind, as you can see already in Sam's hand, he's playing Power Plants in his list, and he's playing 3 copies of Power Plant. So using a high Marnie count plus Power Plant could be the way to keep Hugo out of range from big one-hit KOs. So often Hugo's trying to use the likes of Oricorio GX to draw a bunch of cards. So the Power Plants could start hurting the reach of Hugo throughout the game. So that's going to be something to bear in mind throughout.
Oh, absolutely. You need to stop the combo with Blacephalon. They do that thing where you're like, they got 2 cards in hand, then you turn around, they got 10 cards in hand, and they're getting a one-hit KO on a Tag Team GX or a VMAX. We see a strong start from Sam there. He attaches to the benched Eternatus, recognizing, of course, that Hugo can get a turn 1 KO with Blacephalon on the active Eternatus. So, potential to start attacking and taking prizes next turn. We've got some damage on the Spiritomb, so... couldn't really ask for much more from Sam turn 1 going first.
Yeah, really decent start, and I think you're seeing the energy attachment to the bench for exactly Hugo's first action of the turn. He starts with Energy Spinner. He plays 2 copies in his deck, and it just makes these Blacephalon players have potentially really explosive starts. Like, straight away, he's been able to spinner 3 energies out of his deck, and then Giant Hearth 2 more energies out of his deck. So already he's starting to accumulate a lot of resources. We'll see if he has any options for Welder, and see where that gets him. He does kick off with Welder, so it's not out of the realms of possibility that he's going to find himself a KO on turn 1 here.
No, he did have options for Welder, and in fact, he had Welder. We also saw Sam not put down a power plant, clearly worried that Hugo did have a Giant Hearth in hand, wanted to make Hugo put down the first stadium and then replace it, which is exactly what happened. Obviously, power plant, you can try and maybe make them have a slightly slower start, turn off things that might be there like Dedenne, but... as it happens, it looks like Hugo's having a pretty nice turn. Needs a 3rd energy to attach, and then it's really just how many he can get in his hand. He needs 5 to KO Eternatus. It's a lot to ask for, but certainly Energy Spinner and Giant Hearth, it starts you off quite nicely. Yeah,
we'll see where the Welder has got him. I don't think he would necessarily be that close to straight out the gate. Maybe... I think usually you need the help of Stellar Wish and things like that to help get you there. So we'll see what else Hugo can conjure up here. He may also be debating whether it's worth even just getting a little bit of chip damage into this Eternatus. Sam is quite easily able to just sort of ignore this Eternatus V and not let it become a 3-prize Pokemon. If it's not 1-hit KO'd here, he can just leave it as a 2-prize Pokemon on the bench. But Hugo is still opting to cash in while he can, and just get a little bit of damage in on this Eternatus early.
And that seems alright to me. I mean, even if it does go back to the bench, it's still a 2-prize Pokemon with very little remaining HP sitting on the bench, ready to be gusted and KO'd in the future, which, that's not a bad place to be. It's nice to have the options. We do see an Eternatus V Max coming down. We've got the 2 energy on there. Currently don't have a switching option, but there is a Crobat that can be used here. So potentially using that to draw a few more cards in a moment. And we see another Spiritomb coming down. And Sam's a man after my own heart here. Multiple Spiritomb. I think my Eternatus list, I play a full 4 Spiritomb. I love it as an option as a single prize attacker. Seems like Sam's kind of on my side with this one.
Yeah, he's enjoying the Spiritomb option. I think specifically against Blacephalon, it's potentially better than Hoopers, which are oftentimes seen as one prize attacking options. But Sam does whiff on the Crobat V there. No switch outs for him, so he's having to just, keep that Eternatus available. He does play 4 switches, but unable to find any there. From his digging with Crobat, so just giving up potentially easy prizes for Hugo here, and straight away we also see a replacement stadium. I don't think Sam necessarily minds it in the opening stages. It's really when there's the combination with Marnie and shutting off Oricorio, that's where the power plant later on in the game is going to come in and be even more important. But for Hugo, just finding more fire energies out the gate is something that you're always looking to do here. We'll see if he has any other backup welders potentially as well, or if he just has to commit these fire energies to a knockout this turn, because he's still working on a low hand.
He is. He's got the guaranteed KO. Giant Half will get 2 energy. That's all that needs to be discarded to KO the Eternatus. I mean, really, when you're rolling with Blacephalon here, I love those turns where you don't have to welder. Unfortunately, even though he didn't have to welder, he didn't get a welder or a boss's orders or something else. Having a turn where you don't have to welder, where you can build energy on a bench Blacephalon, take the pressure off yourself in future turns, or maybe go after a target on the bench, something like that, it's so good. Having a turn where you don't have to welder and not being able to gain any other advantage from it, I don't like those turns so much.
No, and now that you've given up that 2 prize knockout, all these Spiritombs, they won't be building up any more spite, I don't think. I think they're pretty much just done now. They're going to be bench fuel for Eternatus at this point. As we are seeing Sam, he's going to go ahead and find another Crobat for him. He's also going to use the Giant Half just to go -1 for his hand here. And you can see straight away, he's identifying power plants. Those are the biggest cards he wants to find now, because you want to get rid of the Blacephalon. You know your opponent doesn't have Welder in their hand from last turn, otherwise they were likely to play it. He has drawn into that power plant, which is pretty big. And if he wants to, he could go for a Marnie play here. We're actually seeing more continual build spites, and I think there's a small risk here because Hugo actually does play Zigzagoon and 4 scoop up nets. So I don't actually like the build spites at this point. Now that you've given up 2 prize knockouts already, but he's going to take the 1 prize KO here. He's turned off Oricorio. There's already 2 of Hugo's 3 stadiums been played. He's only playing 3 copies of Giant Half, so this really hurts Hugo's outs here.
And I think not playing Amani there was absolutely huge. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Joe. If he had Welder, he probably would have played Welder. You know that before Blacephalon does anything else, you need Welder with 2 energy and a 3rd energy for the turn. Being able to drop that power plant when you're fairly sure your opponent doesn't have Welder, or at least you know there's a big chance they don't, is really, really big there. And I mean, I see what you're saying about the prizes. If an Eternatus VMAX goes down, Hugo goes down to 1 prize remaining, well, why not just chuck the biggest HP Pokemon we've got in the game back into the active and go, you might have 1 prize left to take, here's a 340 HP Pokemon that gives up 3 prizes, have fun with that.
Yeah, and it looks like Hugo has nothing to work with. It looks like he's just going to go for a beat catch here, most likely. I think he's even playing these scoop up nets just to be safer around potential stamp plays. No, it's actually because he has a Crobat in his hand. That's a lot better. He's getting
a lot better.
He's getting the option to potentially go for a spit shot here. And again, it's really nice if you can just take a 1 prize knockout at this point. Just put yourself in range of 1 VMAX KO. You can only attach 1 energy per turn from Sam's side of the field. He has nothing else he can attack with, so he'll be forced into continuing with the VMAXs. So in terms of the prize race, if you just take a spit shot on any of these Spiritomb, you're pretty happy with that. And you just put yourself in range of 1 VMAX remaining.
Yeah, that's always quite nice. You know, to KOing a 340 HP Pokemon, you need to discard 7 energy with Blacephalon, but when you only need to do it once and then you win the game, it's a much nicer place to be. We've seen Hugo have a quite kind of relaxed start to the game, 2-hit KO on an Eternatus, and just, well, presumably taking out a single prize Pokemon here on the bench. So it's quite nice to then go, right, well, I'm going to have to do the Blacephalon thing and take a giant KO, but at least I'm only going to have to do it once.
It looks like he actually didn't have any welders to play here, so he's forced into a beat catch, which is a little bit slow, and we also see that Sam was holding on to that Marnie last turn, so it's an opportune moment to try and weave that in, whilst also knocking out a 2-prize Pokemon next turn. So Sam's turn is pretty easy. You evolve up, you attach to your other VMAX, and you just swing the Marnie down, and put Hugo in the same spot as last turn, but you're 2 prizes ahead and continuing this race.
And that is beautiful. I mean, when you're playing against Blacephalon, you know that most of the time you have to take out Blacephalon because it poses too much of a threat to you. But being able to take 2 prize KOs, especially when there isn't even a Blacephalon built up to take KOs next turn, that's absolutely huge. Because he's going to be up by, well, he's going to be up by 1 prize. He's going to have 3 prizes remaining. And Hugo's going to have a 4-card hand with a power plant in play and then be asked to start pulling off the ridiculous Blacephalon combo. It's starting to ask a lot from Hugo at this stage.
And all Hugo has really is 1 Stellar Wish to work with and 4 cards, so not a lot going for him. The beat catch has been denied by Sam. He's holding on to another Marnie next turn, so if Hugo's having another turn of just trying to accumulate resources, it's not going to go well for him. So yeah, this is big stuff from Sam. You can see how disruptive his list is, and you know it's the only defense really you have against Blacephalon. You can't race them in a traditional sense because they can just take easy up trades. So you have to just make them have turns where they pass into you, and he's done really well identifying the cards needed to do that so far. Hugo has found himself a welder though, so the next Blacephalon's getting ready to rumble.
It is going to need a lot of energy to do so. It's going to need energy for the turn and then to take a KO 7 energy. This KO won't win Hugo the game. Hugo needs a minimum 2 KOs here, including a VMAX. So we need to see something going on here, whether that's KOing on the bench in some way or whether that's, you know, getting a huge KO. Sam is working the disruption, like you said, beautifully. That power plant is still out. There's a Marnie still in hand. Hugo, it's not like Hugo's going to have an easier turn next turn. It looks like next turn Hugo's going to be down to a 4-card hand of a power plant in play. So something needs to start happening quick because Sam is going to take a KO every turn. He's got an Eternatus with a bench of 8 Pokemon. He's going to be, and 2 energy on each of his Eternatus. Mm-hmm. Sam's KOing every turn is not in question. It's whether Hugo can keep up with the prizes at this stage, which is weird to say about a 1-prize deck that's used to taking 1-hit KOs for multiple prizes.
Yeah, Sam almost always wins in 2 turns here, and Hugo having to pass just plays into Sam's hands. I think he basically just attaches, plays as many cards down as he can, plays Marnie and just hopes to have Boss in his hand next turn and just takes this prize. I think, you know, you're not worried about hand disruption, so you can just leave all these switches and everything else at the bottom of your deck, and you just play the Marnie, hope to find a Boss's orders for next turn, take your KO and just say, well, I put you back to this low hand size. Weaving in Spiritomb, I'm not too sure how happy I am about this play.
It's not the way I would go personally. I think keep the VMAX in the active, force your opponent to have a ridiculous hand in order to take a KO. It means that Hugo can just discard 1 energy with Blacephalon, take a KO, and then potentially build to a giant KO the following turn to win the game, if Sam isn't able to take a 2-prize KO this turn, which at the moment he's not able to. Personally, I'd like to leave the giant Pokemon in the active and just go, I don't think you can KO this, and even if you can, there's another one coming up right behind it.
I think possibly because you didn't draw the Boss's orders, it makes sense, because if you are like kind of worried about random Zigzagoon double scoop up net plays, as long as the Spiritomb is active, it kind of shuts that off for Sam right now. He can take this prize quite easily, but you're then safeguarded around losing to a Zigzagoon double scoop up net as well as a huge KO, but it's still asking so much from Hugo's hand. I think I'm kind of more comfortable just hitting with a VMAX, as you said, so playing around different things, I guess, here. And we're actually seeing the combination of Mewtwo and Primate Wisdom from Oranguru to allow himself to use a Welder here, just to draw a few more cards by the looks of things as he's accumulating. We have a Fire Crystal coming in as well. I imagine we're seeing one coming down onto a Crobat or an Oricorio here. Probably onto the Crobat, because Oricorio is an easier thing to KO. Or it's a better thing to KO if there is a boss. I guess you're losing to boss anyway, so you can just put it onto anything. But 2 attachments, I'm not... So he's going to try and attack with the Oranguru here and keep energies around.
I don't mind this.
Yeah, this is pretty good, actually.
I like this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, getting energy on Blacephalon is a thing that really is horrible. And, I mean, does Hugo play Boss's Orders in his deck?
Yeah, he plays one copy of Boss's Orders.
Which is standard in Blacephalon, so now there is a potential that if Spiritomb is in the active, maybe, and it's a long shot, there's a lot to ask, but there is a potential for Hugo to just go, I'm going to Boss's Orders a free prize Pokemon because you've not left one in the active to be KO'd, because it does look like Sam's going, well, I've started with Spiritomb, I might as well carry on, but no, just as I say that, we switch back into the Eternatus, Boss's Orders becomes entirely irrelevant, and Sam hits the Boss's Orders to KO the Oricorio, and that's the game.
There you go. So it was still the ball was still in Sam's court. Like we said, it was really likely that Sam was winning over 2 turns, and the boss finally did show up later on, and it was able to push Sam over the line there. I think you just saw the combination. It's Sam's only defense, really. Huge amount of hit points, and saying, you know what, have this low hand size and stopping the Oricorio GX draw. I mean, Oricorio GX is such a vital card for Blacephalon because, as we keep saying, it's a combination deck. You need this, then you need that, then you need 2 more other things. And by the way, here's 7 fire energies that you also need all at once. So it's like you're trying to work so much out from Hugo's side just to get this magical combination. And even though there aren't reset stamps, Marnie's plus the power plant is still, you know, not much to work off of. And Hugo wasn't really able to string things together there. I think the one thing I'd be careful of if I was Sam, though, is building up too much spite. We saw the Spiritombs were weaved in quite nicely. 3 damage counters makes me a little scared, though, because there's a Zigzagoon and there's 4 scoop up nets in the deck, so makes me a little bit queasy that it can be an easy way for Hugo to, you know, pinch an extra prize here or there. So that's going to be something that we can watch in games 2 and 3, hopefully.
Oh, absolutely. It's something you've always got to be aware of with when you're playing Spiritomb is, you know, it's got 60 HP, you're damaging it yourself. A Zigzagoon dropping a damage counter, scoop up net, picking it up to drop more damage counters, that can absolutely take a prize, which ends up winning the game, so it is something you need to watch. So it's going to be interesting. We'll head on over to game 2 now. We'll see what happens in this next game, and we've basically had the game plan for both players mapped out quite nicely. Hugo knows that he needs those big giant KOs. The game plan doesn't really change between all of these big decks. Sam, however, just showed us the game plan. Sam showed us how he beats Blacephalon. It is Disruption. It is a combination of Power Plant. Oricorio draws you 3 cards if you had a Pokemon KO the previous turn, which with Blacephalon is pretty much a given. So it turns a Marnie to 4 into a Marnie to 7. That's a big difference. If Sam can keep having Power Plant on the board and keep using those Marnie, we could see just a repeat of game 1. If he can't, things are going to be very different.
And again, his hand is nice. He's got that early attachment. That's always a huge relief for Eternatus players, having those early attachments. He's got also a really nice hand for next turn. So I think, you know, not many actions, but super effective turn for him. He can VMAX attach, Crobat, and hope to find a switch or a supporter on the other side of that. So yeah, really nice stuff from him. Obviously not wanting to put the power plant down early because you're trying to win the stadium war. Both players are using 3 stadiums in the deck, so if you can be the one to put it down second, you're going to be the one, you know, keeping it in play for the remainder of the game. So really nice to see him holding on to that, because it's much more important for Hugo to put down his stadium early, because you just need to get those energies in the first place. So easier for Sam to hold on to his, as Hugo starts off Stellar Wishing, gets a Welder, couple energies down onto Blacephalon. Pretty decent stuff here so far.
Yeah, we're just going to need another energy on Blacephalon to attack. Potentially a big turn. I mean, you said back in the previous game that really these Blacephalon, when they have the big giant turn 1s, it's because they've got a Jirachi in the active using Stellar Wish. Potentially scoop up net for extra Jirachi, etc. So we've seen one Stellar Wish and we've seen a Welder. Could we see some more stuff going on here? Could we see some extra draws, some more Pokemon abilities? Hugh hasn't done much for a little while here, so is there much else going on?
Yeah, one thing that's actually interesting about Hugo's list compared to most Blacephalon is that he's not playing Zacian V in his deck. That's something that many Blacephalon players choose to end their turn on. He does play 2 copies of Cramorant though, so potentially we'll see a Beat Catch end his turn out. No, he's just going to bench it and pass it over to Sam. I think he's just kind of petrified of Marnie, to be honest. Just saying, let me get these cards on the board so that when I'm, you know, getting new hands, I have the options for everything.
Yeah, there is a lot to work with here. Now, of course, there's 2 power plants in hand here. And, I mean, do you still save one because they're so important? Do you risk losing one early to try and get extra momentum? I mean, if Eternatus and Blacephalon just run into each other doing their usual thing, Blacephalon wins most of the time. Sam is the one being forced by the matchup into adapting and doing things a bit differently. He is going to play one down, but like you say, that could be the difference in the game here if he ends up losing what we refer to as a stadium war.
Yeah, it's a tough call, but at the end of the day, you're supportive of us, and initiating that prize race, especially now that he's drawn into Amani, seems like still it's a really good deal. You're denying Stellar Wish as long as you can take this KO, and you put him down to a 4-card hand, and he does find switch cards. This is pretty big here. So I think it's a risk worth taking here because, man, you're getting so much tempo from this, and again, leaving Hugo probably in a spot where he's more likely to beat catch than he is to take a knockout for 340 damage.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget, he still played the money. He still played the power plant. It's not like Hugo's got some giant hand and loads of options. You're still going up by a prize and saying to Hugo, hey, so I've already got my big 340 HP Pokemon and I'm already rolling here, and I have left you in the worst possible position that I could. I mean, the only real good thing about Hugo's side of the board is he welded onto Blacephalon last turn. Mm-hmm. Other than that, his board has almost nothing going for it.
Yeah, and there's not even any fire energies in the discard pile. That's kind of a mini quest for Blacephalon throughout the game, is that you start getting those energies out of your deck into your hand, into the discard pile, so then you can Fire Crystal them all back just for one card and, triple up on one card's worth in your hand. And as of right now, not happening for him. He does have a Quick Ball, though. He does play Crobat in addition to Dene, which is currently shut off. So that looks to be what we are seeing here, which is pretty nice. The fact that he got rid of a Fire Energy tells me he has at least one more in his hand. Okay, Energy Spinner, exactly. So he could either just choose to fail this, or he could just attach it to Blacephalon probably here. If you're feeling... Okay, he's feeling defensive, and he's going to attach it to Cramorant. You don't have many great options to Spit Shot. I mean, you'd possibly just go for a Zigzagoon KO or a Spiritomb KO here with Spit Shot if you are able to Crobat into Welder plays. Taking the one prize is still decent, though. We've seen how 1+3+2 is an easier route than dealing with like 2 big VMAXs at times, just because of the nature of the hand disruption. So we'll see if Hugo is content to beat catch or if he's able to weave in a Spit Shot here.
It's going to be difficult either way. Even if he does take a prize, Sam's going to be going up 3 prizes early, at least 2 ahead, in the early game, right at the beginning of the game. Sam's supposed to be taking little 1-prize knockouts while Hugo is trading. Eternatus isn't really supposed to be jumping out to a giant prize lead here, because if you get a giant prize lead, it doesn't really matter as much when your opponent is taking multiple prizes. Sam KOs the Cramorant here, he's 2 KOs away from winning the game. He's got a boss's orders in hand, he uses that to KO a Crobat, and then any attack wins him the game the following turn. So it looks like Sam's winning in 3 turns here, fairly easily. So it really is over to Hugo, and now there's the Dene going on the board, drawing another hand of 6 cards. Hugo is really, really reaching here, but he does have Giant Half on the board, so Welder would get at least an attack here to take a prize.
Yeah, and he's used the Mewtwo to guarantee that Welder, so we know that he can Welder. It's whether he's going for Blacephalon here and trying to piece together a big KO, or if he's just sticking with a Spit Shot here. Okay.
And yeah, it looks like the Spit Shot here, take a prize. But I just laid out Sam's route. Of course, all of that is for naught. There's every possibility that Hugo takes a little prize here, and then next turn, 1-hit KOs an Eternatus VMAX, and then we're talking about how Hugo is 1 attack away from winning the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and one little bit of fear for Sam right now is that he's got no other attachments or any way to draw cards. He's just hoping that the Great Ball can help him. Hugo choosing not to take prizes here. He's just setting up a Crobat for his Zigzagoon plays later down the line. I think he's only played 1 Scoop Up Net so far, so interesting to see that. We are going to see a Great Ball here. It doesn't get Sam anywhere. It just gets him a Zigzagoon. That's not what you want to see. You can Dangerous Drill to remove the Giant Hearth, which seems like a good deal here, seeing as though the damage from Zigzagoon isn't being relevant either on the board or with the ability itself. But taking these prizes is scary because you still have no energies. If it's just, either you just take the Blacephalon here and force more cards out of Hugo. I think that's what you have to take because you're already at 5 prizes. This puts you on evens. and it's actually really rough because you have to be afraid that Hugo can one-hit KO respond you. Yeah, I think you have to make this play. It's not nice in terms of your prize race. Yeah, exactly.
And you haven't got Power Plant down. The Oricorio is not on the board, but if Oricorio goes down, that's another free card. And one of the things about Eternatus, which is terrifying, it's a 2-energy attacker, which isn't a huge problem if you can get energy out consistently from the early game. But if you end up in a situation like this, where you don't have an energy on any of your benched Eternatus, there is no... If this Eternatus goes down, there is no backup Eternatus for next turn. There's a there's a Spiritomb, but I don't believe Spiritom's hitting enough damage. I think it would be doing like 100 damage. That's not enough.
Yeah, really, really rough, actually. So if Hugo can piece together a KO, it's going to be huge. He could, take 3 prizes, but also just take every threat off the board from Sam, to be honest, and really, jump into the ascendancy. This one Blacephalon, any time a Blacephalon sticks on the board, you're really jumping for joy because it's so much less that you need the following turn. So this is a big one for sure for Hugo. This could be his way back into the game after having a pretty slow start.
Well, that's why you play Oricorio. You play Oricorio as a fine, I'm getting a Pokemon KO'd every turn. I might as well try and gain something from it, even though it does give up 2 prizes. But like I say, if it's not going down, there's no downside. I mean, this is it for Hugo. This is the turn. If he can get a KO here, then he is going to be in a great position. Although as much as I say this is a turn, let's look back at Sam's hand. 2 Switch and an Eternatus V Max. It's not like Sam's got a hand which is bursting to explode next turn. There's a good chance that Sam's next turn is attack.
I mean, it could just be a pass.
If he gets KO'd, it will.
Yeah. Attack would be the dream, really. I think. We're seeing a quick ball from Hugo for Zigzagoon here. It doesn't help deal with the Eternatus V Max, but it's going to get to work on that Crobat that he's started on. With the spit shot from the previous turn. So now he also has the scoop up net, so he can take prize cards to essentially see more cards here as well if he's still not yet able to take a KO. So if he's checked his prize cards earlier on, this could be a big play for him to work towards, the likes of Fire Crystal, the likes of, Spare Welders even. This could be big here.
And this is such a big advantage about KOing the Crobat now. It's not just that you get to use Zigzagoon to take a 2-prize KO, yay, etc. It's that you're drawing an extra 2 cards in the middle of your turn. So any Marnie or Reset Stamp shenanigans that anybody might try and use against you, they don't work when you're taking cards in the middle of your turn. We do see a Fire Crystal coming down here, so there's another free Fire Energy. And it really now is going to be, does Hugo have... Or there's an Energy Retrieval to get another 2... If there are 2 in the discard, there are. So there is minimum 5 energy. 8 is the number. 1 to attach, 7 to discard. We know there's 5.
Yeah, and I think you only ever play these cards if you have the full complement. You never play both of those, even if you're trying to make Welder plays work. Possibly you play them just to get some damage in. He's going to be Mewtwoing another Welder to the top of his deck here by the looks of things from his discard pile. I mean, it's reasonable to try and set up a 2-hit KO where, you put it in range of another spit shot from a Cramorant if you can't reach here. But it's a bit of a miss if he's not able to take the big KO. Yeah, he's just going to put it in range of Cramorant by the looks of things. Wow, what a draw.
And that's the problem. That is the problem. We're trying to take a 2-hit KO. Because Sam now gets the V-Max, plays the Professor's Research. You've got to assume that there's going to be an energy here. And that means that there will potentially be a response. And I believe that next turn, Spiritomb is going to be an attacker which can KO a Blacephalon. So now, that extra turn that Sam just got there is going to allow him to potentially build up multiple attackers moving forward. Although, if the Eternatus VMAX goes down, I feel confident that Spiritomb won't be attacking.
No, exactly. And fortunately, Research has drawn Sam into those energy cards that he's been missing this entire time. So it looks like he'll probably just take this knockout, go down to 3 prize cards. The Cramorant will come up, probably take a response KO. And then it's down to Sam to continue to look for Marnies. That's one thing that's missing from his hand right now. It's something that he's used so effectively so far. But at least you're throwing another 340 hit point hurdle in the way of Hugo.
And that's always nice, you know, forcing your... I mean, we used to talk about the 7-prize game. Nowadays, we're talking about the 8-prize game. You need to take 6 prizes to win. You need to take 1 more. Oh, now take 3. So you've actually taken 8. That is not really what we're trying to do when we're playing the game. So that's big. I mean, the fact that Sam did whiff that turn of energy attachment is still pretty big. He could have had a fresh Eternatus up in the active using that switch this turn, which would have potentially been big to prevent a Cramorant KO. Although having said that, it hits the bench, so maybe not. Yeah, Cramorant's pretty good.
Yeah, Cramorant will find you. And looks like we see a Giant Half coming in for Hugo here. Looks like he's just piecing more energies together. He's actually discarding a Blacephalon. That's 3 Blacephalon. He only plays 3 copies of Blacephalon. So he's just saying, I'm going to try and Cramorant my way to victory over 2 turns. You can Spit Shot the active for 3 prizes, and then you can try and Spit Shot a Spiritomb or a Zigzagoon to close out the game. He no longer wants to go for Blacephalon. And yeah, we're actually seeing the second bench of Cramorant here. He does play 2 copies, as we've said a couple of times now. So he's saying, 1 more Spit Shot his game, and that's really not much, even if Sam is trying to weave together Marnies or Power Plants, and regardless, he doesn't have either of those options available to him. Hugo's picked up his Mewtwo, he's put it back down to Welder to the top, taking 3 prize cards here. I think he's in a really, really good position to close this game.
Yeah, this is looking very, very strong. And we see, 1 Cramorant is pretty standard in Blacephalon. That's what we see from the vast majority of players. It's not really beat catch, although that's a nice option to search for any 2 cards. It's all, we've already seen it, all the different things it can do in games. But having 2 here, Hugo is as good as sewn this game up. You said yourself, wherever you go, Cramorant will find you. And unfortunately, there are too many single prize Pokemon on Sam's bench, and there are no free prize Pokemon on Hugo's bench. We do see Power Plant coming down here, but there's no Marnie to accompany it, and you'll notice that Hugo is not relying on Oricorio here. So Hugo's gonna have some options next turn.
Yeah, and Sam really can't do anything to disrupt this. He's put the stadium down, but that there's a Welder on top of the deck anyway. There's a second Cramorant already developed. There's no more disruption available to you. You can't do anything to stop Hugo's plan here. And all he can do is take these knockouts and hope that Hugo can't piece together a mere 3 energies, because that's all that's required. So the Welder's already there. If he's got a Fire Crystal, the game is already over.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Cramorant as well. It's, with Blacephalon, it's Welder for 2 energy and a 3rd energy and a bunch to discard. Whereas Cramorant, okay, you lose the energy when you attack, but at least you don't have to do too much. Is there a 3rd energy there? Oh, there's an energy spinner. That's just as good. Search out an energy from your hand, attach to the Cramorant, KO. Well, either the Spiritomb or either of the Zigzagoons. It makes no real difference here. The important thing is something's going down and giving up a prize, and Hugo is going to be even in this game up this matchup at 1 game apiece. So really well played there from Hugo, taking advantage of double Cramorant.
Yeah, very cool to see, actually. It's something that you don't see all that often. He actually attacked with Cramorant 3 times in that game, so you may almost call it a Cramorant deck that just seems to have a few Blacephalons in there, because I think he only used Fireball Circus once, and it was just for 200 damage. So it was all the heavy lifting from Cramorant there, which is really cool to see. For Sam, he just ended on a hand where he couldn't Crobat and he couldn't Marnie or Research, which then just meant that he had that sort of stumbling block with attachments here and there. But even then, Hugo got through that game without using Oricorio anyway. And, when it's only a Cramorant, you only need to have Fire Crystal. And even the Mewtwo there, the Mewtwo is actually a big deal because, it's protecting against Marnie the entire time. Sam's not playing Reset Stamp, so Mewtwo saving the Welder nice and safe on the top deck means that even if there are Marnie's coming in, you still know that you're there with the Cramorant play. So yeah, really nice stuff to see, and great play from Hugo to identify a different route rather than just going for the straight up huge intense damage that Blacephalon can perform. You can get there with the craft DKOs from Cramorant as well.
And we see both players here, opening up those other options. We see the Cramorant option being open. We see the Spiritomb option being open. Spiritomb really not pulling its weight very much in this particular game or this match. It's not done very much. Cramorant, on the other hand, really has become an absolutely crucial card. I don't think we've even seen a giant KO on Blacephalon, have we?
No, we haven't. it's just a bit part player so far. But that's kind of down to Sam's approach as well. He's trying to Marnie as much as possible and make it so that Hugo can't do that. And Sam came out the blocks quickly as well. He was taking a KO from turn 2 and trying to put pressure on with the Eternatus. So he was bringing the game to Hugo as quickly as possible. And Hugo was kind of scrabbling to piece bits together with beat catches and stuff in there as well. So yeah, it's cool to see that you don't have to have the big highlight reel turns with Blacephalon to still take wins.
It worked out pretty well. So we are one game apiece. We probably need to go over to game 3 here and see which of these players is going to move on through the winners bracket and which one is going to move into the losers bracket. Do remember we are in a double elimination tournament, so a loss here would not eliminate either player, but it would put them back into the losers bracket, which means more games played to make the final, and it also means that you're out of chances. Once you're in the losers bracket, you lose once more, it's over.
Yeah, and Sam is going to be kicking things off. Looks like he's got... So he does pick up an energy card, which is nice. At first, you'll want to see what this Great Ball has to offer. I think ideally there, you look to find a second regular Eternatus V at the best case scenario, but it looks like he's having to settle for a Spiritomb here. I think realistically, you still have to attach to the active, but there's always that small fear that you're going to get, blown up all in one turn with some crazy giant half energy spinner plays, but... Attaching to the active, not the worst option. You've got a second Eternatus V coming down now. You've got a Marnie for next turn, so not the worst start from him.
No, and you need to get the attachment. Eternatus is a 2-energy attacker. You cannot whiff an attachment, so, not attaching it means you're crowbar it for one fewer card. It's just not what you're looking to do. Now, we do see Energy Spinner coming down from Hugo here, getting those free energy. It's a great card when you go second, lets you search for any free energy card. And that's the kind of thing that leads to these big, giant turns. But looks like we got a Welder coming down, 2 energy on the Cramorant. We know there's an energy in hand to get an attack here. So we could see a single prize KO on the Spiritomb, far more likely. We'll see a hit into the active Eternatus, just setting up for a 2-hit KO to, well, hopefully take 3 prizes.
Has Hugo got any other Pokemon here? That's the only thing that I'm worried about now. He's started off with the Welder, he's got the Spinner. The attacks are looking great, but what else has he got to play with here? One thing about Blacephalon is you can have really awkward opening hands. Hugo's playing 14 energy. He's playing giant halves, which are to do with energy spinners, retrievals, fire crystals. All of these cards are to do with energy. Okay, what a relief. He does have Pokemon Communication in his hand, so he can at least get some more basics out here. That's not going to be a problem, and looks like he's happy to Dene change away the remainder of his hand here to continue making a push.
I mean, that's not too bad. Like you say, there's energy in the discard there. That opens up things like your Fire Crystal and your energy retrieval nice and early. That route you were talking about a little while ago, Joe. And at least... I mean, look, there's a second Pokemon down. Sam went first, which means next turn, Eternatus V Max, energy, big KO. If there wasn't a second basic, Sam would be potentially winning the game next turn. That is not a position you want to be in.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if Hugo wants to pile in on that active, or if he wants to do the same play he did early last game, which is set up that Crobat for Zigzagoon scoop-up net plays. I feel like you have to play around Marnie as much as possible here, and just expect it to come down and set up that 2-hit KO, because Sam can only attach 1 per turn. If you can take that big 2-hit KO, you're going to set yourself up to have a turn potentially of not being attacked, or it means that there's a Spiritomb coming into the active, which is much easier to deal with. As we saw, Hugo was even able to use Whap Down with a Ranguru. So, yeah, I think hitting into the active makes the most sense here, because it helps your prize map so much better. And Sam, he can't sacrifice this Eternatus V. He can't, just ignore it. He has to make it a VMAX to get any value from it at all. Interestingly, are we going to see the Zigzagoon ping here? I actually think the Dangerous Drill on the Giant Half feels better to me, personally. It's rare that you can actually weave in the Dangerous Drill, so I would have liked to have seen it. That said, Sam still has 3 stadiums that he could draw into.
Does not draw into them now, though. Doesn't have that stadium ready to roll. Does have a quick pull. And he does have the VMAX. Doesn't have a second energy as it goes at the moment. But I believe he hasn't played a Crobat this turn, so we will be able to draw a few more cards. Crobat, of course. I mean, Crobat's what makes the Eternatus deck. You are forced into having an purely Darkness-type deck, but having that Crobat acting as a draw engine really is what turns Eternatus from a fun little gimmicky deck into a genuinely viable Tier 1 deck. And we do see that the Power Plant comes down and the energy. They're the 2 cards Sam was looking for, so all in all... not terrible.
Yeah, he'll certainly take that. And with the Zigzagoons now, he's put that Blacephalon in range for a Spiritomb to respond KO. So the maths is, important here as well. It works out great when you also find that stadium replacement. So it's good to see Hugo again with that 4-card hand size, because Sam did play that Marnie. So we'll see what he can piece together. One of his last actions before attacking was getting a Welder to the top of his deck with Mewtwo. He's used that so well throughout this series. And straight away we are seeing a Fire Crystal, so we know that there's going to be a Welder coming here as well for that Blacephalon. And it's not too much to ask for to reach on this Eternatus now.
No, not at all. He just needs a few energy to discard to actually go and get the KO. And that's, this is what Blacephalon does. It is about trying to get these free prize knockouts. So you can give up a prize or two and that's fine, as long as you're just taking more. Give up the 2 prize Cramorant, but take 3 prizes off an Eternatus. That is still going to lead you to victory at the end of the day. And of course, we're seeing 2-hit KOs from Hugo here, but we're in game 3. Hugo played in the first 2 games. Hugo is as aware as we are, there we go, that he's not been getting these giant KOs. So it's probably time to stop trying to play for them, and maybe they come up and yay, happy bonus. But if they're not coming out, Hugo's shown he can win a different way.
And here he's set up that 2-hit KO by the looks of things. We are going to finally see a Fable Circus. It is going to get the 200 damage. 4 Fire Energy is being thrown away from his hand to deal this 3 prize knockout. And it means that Hugo, if he wants to respond, he has to... Well, first he has to remove some bench Pokemon. Because the VMAX hitting the discard pile means that it no longer has, the up to 8 benched Pokemon for Dark types. But the Spiritomb's going to have to come active here. He can get a respond KO. And it looks like he's going to try and use just like Spiritombs for the remainder of the game, I imagine. He does find another Spiritomb as well, which could be good.
That's nice.
So he's going to... But it's still really... Wow, he's choosing not to take it here. So is he opening it up for Crobat plays? I feel like you almost always still Marnie here, unless you're scared that you're going to miss energy drop, which is also pretty fair, actually.
Yeah, you need that energy. And that's the problem. Energy is a story now here for Sam. We're back in a situation, double switch here just to get more cards off the Crobat. We're back in a situation where there's no there's still no energy down. There's still supporter, but no energy for the moment. And it means that there is no Eternatus coming out. And if you go down the Spirit, you either go down the Spiritomb route and you just attack with Spiritomb, or you try building up an Eternatus, but if you do that, you are giving your opponent one turn where essentially you promise not to attack.
Yep, so we are finally seeing the energy drop on the Marnie, which is really nice. So we are going to see a knockout picked up here. Again, Hugo, Power Plant locked, only a 4-card hand. He does have Stellar Wish to work with. But even then, most of the time, he's requiring Welder and a few other pieces to even take a KO on this Spiritomb as it stands. He does have all of his Scoop Up Nets available, though, so there's still Zigzagoon Scoop Up Net shenanigans that can take a prize here as well.
I mean, that would be huge, because then you would be forcing Sam to push something else into the active, which you could potentially get a KO on. And it's a lot to ask, having to get the Welder and the extra energy and the Zigzagoon and the Scoop Up Net. But it's a kind of thing that could really swing it into Hugo's favour here. I mean, I think Hugo's in a good position if he can keep getting attackers, because he's forcing Sam into attacking with Spiritomb. But there's only one more Spiritomb that's really going to do damage, and Sam doesn't have enough time to build up another Spiritomb. But it's going to take 2 turns to build up an Eternatus. So if this Spiritomb does go down, Sam's basically got one more attacker. And after that, it's hard to see how he's pulling off a decent attack the following turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that Hugo can go for Spit Shot plays again on Crobat because he has his own Zigzagoon that could reach as well. So in theory, he could win the game just in 2 turns here, as we are seeing the switch into the Cramorant. I think you always start on the Spiritomb that's active, though.
Oh, absolutely. Because otherwise you're giving Sam an extra attachment. You're leaving a Spiritomb out with an energy on, which gives Sam potentially that turn to attach to an Eternatus or to a bent Spiritomb to then attach to Eternatus the following turn. You're essentially giving Sam that extra energy attachment he needs. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm going after the energy here.
Yeah. We are going to see the Spit Shot into the active, taking Hugo down to just 2 prize cards remaining. No easy route for him next turn to actually take those 2 prizes all at once, but hunting down the energy, making Sam essentially just run out of options to attack with here, makes a lot of sense for Hugo. There's a decent amount of resources gone. There's 10 of the 14 fire energies gone. There's 3 of the 4 fire crystals gone for Hugo, but should still be enough to get him over the line here, you'd imagine, as Sam is going to be promoting his Eternatus V here, trying to buy some time more than likely.
Quite possibly here. I mean, the problem is Sam has still got 2 attacks in order to win the game, so he can't just give up a 2-hit KO here knowing that one more turn wins it. It's going to be 2 attacks to win the game, so he can leave Eternatus in the active. Eternatus can take a hit, But then, even after Eternatus takes a hit, you need 2 turns to win and your opponent needs 1. And that's not working so well.
Yeah, that's not ideal. And we are going to see a quick ball here. Looks like he'll just be double quick balling. Quick balling something that he doesn't want, so then he can quick ball again for Crobat for more cards here. Looks like Eternatus V is the only other card that he doesn't want to use right now before a Crobat here. Oh, he actually gets rid of a Dark Energy. Interesting. So he does want that Eternatus V. With 5 energies left in the deck, you still have a decent chance of hitting one. Does promote a risk, but yeah, he does draw into a Dark Energy, which is something here.
That is pretty huge.
Yeah.
Whiffing the energy would have been terrible.
Wow, so he is committing to the active as well. And he's just going to build Spite on a Spiritomb. Probably Professor's Research here. Looks like he's going to protect something with the communication, or just have a little scout. Looks like he's going to take the Zigzagoon back out. Just put a damage counter basically anywhere. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. Eternatus hits a lot of damage.
And even with Spiritomb, there's nothing that it really brings into the numbers. I mean, he is now building up Spiritomb on his bench. And, you know, he can do little things like Boss's Orders, a Jirachi, and KO it with Spiritomb. It's not exactly some power play, but, you know, if he can KO, you know, a Jirachi with a Spiritomb and then a Cramorant with an Eternatus, that is a route to taking 3 prizes. That will work. It's not an ideal situation, but it's a way to take the prizes. I mean, it's very much Hugo's game to lose at this stage. Hugo is in the driver's seat. Sam can still win, but they both look like they're 2 attacks away from winning the game, and it's Hugo's turn. It's just going to come down to whether Hugo, like you pointed out, he's used a lot of resources. Does he have enough resources to bring over the finish line? Certainly, if we could see a Zigzagoon scoop up net, spit shot onto a Crobat, that would be the best way for Hugo right now.
Oh boy.
And there is a Zigzagoon.
He's only played 1 scoop up net so far, so there's 3 remaining in the deck. And he's going to be Crobatting for a bunch of cards. He has Welder the other side, so he's drawing, what, 7 cards here at least? Potentially more deck thinning as well, to try and close the game all in 1 turn. There's an energy retrieval.
There's energy retrieval.
So that sets
That'll
up the
get energy for
Welder.
the Welder.
Yep.
Does he have Welder in hand?
Yeah, he muted the Welder.
He does have Welder in hand.
Yeah.
Show me scoop up net.
He muted the Welder, so we know that's there. It's literally just scoop up net now to close the game. This Cramorant deck's great.
Got it. I know, right? He's got it!
Wow.
So now we can play down the Zigzagoon, put 10 more damage on the Crobat, spit shot with Cramorant for 160 to KO the Crobat, and the Crobat deck with a couple of teched-in Blacephalon looks like it is going to move on through the winner's bracket.
Wow, really nice play from Hugo there. Again, like you said, I think we need to change the graphic. We've got a Cramorant deck on our hands that's doing some Blacephalon stuff in and out. But yeah, really nice from Hugo. He's identified when and where to use the Blacephalon and how effectively you can use that Cramorant and weave in the Zigzagoon to just reach on all sorts of things. So yeah, cool play from him. For Sam, yeah, things didn't quite go to plan in that 3rd game. He did try and set up some 1-prize attackers and weave them in when he could, but at the end of the day, you can only attach 1 per turn with a Eternatus, and when the first one goes down so easily, you're always going to be on the back foot.
You really are. I mean, I'm genuinely quite amazed. You know, double Cramorant is the kind of thing that most players would look at and go, oh, you play 1 Cramorant in Blacephalon, but 2, when is that going to be useful? Well, it turns out it pretty much single-handedly beats Eternatus. That was a Blacephalon deck that we saw that did not do the Blacephalon things. We weren't seeing giant 1-hit KOs. I mean, the best Blacephalon was basically doing was setting up an Eternatus and tagging in Cramorant to go and get the glory and the KO, and it worked beautifully. But that's what we see from the best players. They look at a match, and that was not a regular Eternatus deck. With the Power Plant and all the Marnies, that is not how Eternatus generally is going around. But it seems like the perfect counter to Blacephalon. But then again, maybe it's not a regular Blacephalon deck. And the best players have answers. They have little tweaks in their deck, or even maybe not their deck list, just their playstyle, but they've got ways to navigate these awkward situations. They don't just go, well, they're stopping me getting my giant KOs, I guess I'm not going to win this. They're going, well, maybe it's Cramorant time.